All right, we're here. We're opening the room. Come on in. Say good morning in the chat. Come on in, everybody. Make sure you change the drop down next to your chat bar where it says 2: change the drop down to 2 all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see what you're saying. The default is all panelists. Just change it to all panelists and attendees and post hello this morning and tell us where you're watching from and say hi while we let everybody come on in, and then I'll introduce Drs. Nick and Nicole, and we'll get started for today. Hey, Dawn, guten Tag. Hey, Kathy, Ginger, Lynn, Amy. Awesome, Paige, woohoo. Steph, Agnes, awesome. Denise, good morning. Hey, Miriam. Awesome. Hey, Janelle and Suzanne, Andrea. Awesome. Great to see you, Andrea. Great to see everybody here this morning. Come on in. Hey, Leah. Excellent. Don't forget to change the drop down, hey, Ann, to all panelists and attendees. Some of you have it set it still to all panelists so we can see it, and I love you, and change it so that everybody else can see it too. Great to see you. Come on in, everybody, and we'll get started in just a minute. Awesome. Great job, Miriam. So excited. I'm excited to do this Hands of Vlad recording today. It's going to be awesome. Oh, you're so sweet, Michelle. Love you guys. Good morning. It's early for me to be on video, and I'm thrilled to be here. Even Catherine messaged me this morning. She's like, Stacy, we're going live at 9. That's early. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. It'll be good. Come on in and say good morning, everyone. We're excited to get started. Oh, what a great mug that is. I'm a mug person. I love a big mug. Love to see it. I am using this morning one that Jake made for me in ceramics class one day. Yeah, so fun. I know they miss you guys so much.
Miss them.
They probably miss the dogs more.
Yeah.
They do. They do miss Pappy and Booker more. Yeah, Leah, you're on mute. No problem at all. It's all good. Everybody's good. Okay, come on in, and we'll start in just a minute. I want to give everybody a chance to kind of get into the Zoom, get themselves set up. Good morning, Teresa. Glad you're here. Awesome. Oh, don't you love it, Anne? It's like the best water bottle in the world. Relationship you. I am changing the way relationship is done. Awesome. Hey, Kirsten. Hey, Teresa. Glad you guys are here. All right. I know. You're welcome. You're welcome. Awesome. Yes, change your drop down to all panelists and attendees, and we'll get started in just a minute. All right, so in a minute, I'm going to start this is the recorded version of this. Hands of Vlad as opposed to the good morning, it's Stacy. Hey, Silka, glad that you're here. You're welcome so much. Everybody's using their water bottles now, and I love it. I love it. You are welcome. I've got 2, actually, now that I see it. I can be going.
You're fully stacked.
And there's 3 ClickFunnels ones over there, so I can tell our house manager lined them up this morning for me. Hey, Sandy. Hey, Steph. Hey, Steph. 2 Stephanies in a row. All right. All right, welcome everybody to this amazing Hands of Vlad web class. I'm so excited. Today we're talking about health and wellness with my dear friends, Dr. Nick Carruthers and Dr. Nicole Rivera. Nick and Nicole have been friends of ours for years. And I'm going to tell you all about that in a minute. But first I want to also introduce Dr. Nick and Dr. Nicole of Integrative Wellness Group in Belmar, New Jersey. They are amazing doctors, practitioners, all about integrative wellness, and it really is about solving mysterious illnesses, things that people think can't be solved, things that people think are just kind of symptoms or the way things must be, or I guess there's not really a fix for this. A lot of things that are very wonderful, well-meaning doctors in the I'll say traditional, I know there's a word for that. What was that?
Conventional.
Conventional, thank you. Just like in Whole Foods, conventional, organic, it's conventional or integrative. Our conventional medical practitioners just aren't trained in it and don't know. And so I'm so glad to be able to bring them here, to be able to do this amazing class for you. And so first of all, welcome, Nick and Nicole. We're so glad that you're joining us today.
We're very excited to be here. So
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to share a story with you about how I met Nick and Nicole and why I asked them to come here and do the Hands of Lad class with us. And it's a very personal story. And so some of you in relationship, you that have been here for several years know some of the story, but most of you don't know at all what's been going on in my health journey. And I've never talked about it outside of relationship view or publicly. But here's what I'm going to take you back. That was 2016. Nick and Nicole and Paula and I have been in a mastermind together for our businesses because Nick and Nicole have a mission-driven business, right? They want to bring wellness to as many humans as possible and let people know that there's a real solution that they're not being offered. And we want to get our relationship solution out to as many families as possible and let them know that there's a solution that they've not yet been offered. And so we both ended up in the same mastermind for mission-driven businesses to get your message out there to more families to help more people. And in that mastermind is where we met Nick and Nicole. Thank God, so grateful for that. And we had been friends and peers in that group for years. And it was December of 2016. And I've shared this story with you, relationship view, but you really didn't know the wrapper of how it happened. You know how in relationship view we do the level 3 share on day 2 of every relationship view meeting, where we do the level 3 of like the top 5%, what's going well, bottom 5%. Nick and Nicole know this exercise very well. And I tell you all the time that the reason why we still do that exercise and the reason why we still share it with 3 people is because something very magical happened to me during that exercise. It was December of 2016, and I did my bottom 5% for personal, and I shared with 2 of my friends in that mastermind that I was worried about my health, that I felt like I had tried everything, and I was getting more and more exhausted. I was pretty much at that point throwing up every single day, no matter what I ate or eliminated. I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger every day. Even while I was doing green juice fasting, I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was starting to really be concerned that I don't know that I'm fat. I think I might be sick. And I shared that because we did the bottom 5%, the entrepreneur organization level 3 share exercise, just like I talked to you about at the Relationship U Live meeting. And my very good friend, Susan Sadakis, told me, you need the Medical Medium book. And that was the beginning of a big trajectory shift for me, which, by the way, if you haven't read that book, I do recommend it. And after I told them, this is why that level 3 share is so important. This is why having a community of people that you trust is so important. This is why vocalizing the things that you're keeping to yourself is so important. Something changed, and I finally felt free to say something. And the next person that I talked to was I went and found Dr. Nick, and I sat down in a chair that was empty next to him, and I didn't really say anything for a minute. He just sat there, and I said, Nick, I think I might be sick, and I need you. And he looked at me and he said, can you imagine what you're going to be able to do when you have 100% of your energy and your power and your wellness? And I just cried. And I was so grateful that I knew Nick and Nicole and that they were going to help me. And in true, sorry. And in true Stacy fashion, I went from December to January, and for those of you who know what our season is like around here, February used to be an extremely busy time for us. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to work with Dr. Nick and Nicole. And I slid from January to May, not doing anything about it, and kept putting it off like, oh, next week, next month, next week, next month, next week, next month, because I don't have time, for those of you who know my blueprint, right, in our group. And it was May of 2017. And some of you were in the room, but you had no idea what actually happened that day. We did a bonus day for laser coaching. And some of you from Relationship U were in that room. It was May 2017. And back then we used to do the breakthrough course. And we invited everyone in the breakthrough course and everyone in Relationship U to come for a one-day bonus day of laser coaching with me and Paul. It was at the Hyatt Regency in Princeton. If any of you were there, you can post in the comments, say, I was there. This is what happened before yes, I know you were there. In fact, that was the year that you went from being a breakthrough course student to a Relationship U student, many of you. Right before that day started, you were all coming in, you were getting your coffee, you were getting your beverages, you were registering, you were finding a seat, and I was behind the door going through the process that I always go through to turn myself on, raise my vibration, raise my energy, connect myself to source so that I can go out and serve. And I did that, and I called upon source and Archangel Michael and Jesus and all the things that I do. And I walked to the table to say good morning to you. And as I put my foot down to say good morning, I felt what could only be explained as a bolt of lightning start at the top of my head, go all the way down my back to the bottom of my feet. And it felt like from my head to my feet, I was stuck in cement and I couldn't move. And all of you were watching me, and I was about to say the words, good morning, and I did a 2-second prayer and said, please, God, take over and heal my body so I can serve these children that you have sent to me today, and I swear to God I will go to a doctor when this wraps up tonight. I opened my eyes. I could move my head and my body. I said good morning, and we began the day. Paul and I did laser coaching all the way nonstop until 5 p.m. And at 6 p.m., I was in the office of Dr. Katie Samsel, who's a Relationship U student and our chiropractor. And I said, okay, no more delays. We're starting. And I started the process of trying to understand what was going on with me and why celery juice was great but not enough to solve what was happening with my body. And Dr. Katie has been a total blessing to me because she lives 5 minutes from where we lived, and I was extremely lucky to be able to work with her and worked with Dr. Katie the whole time, has always been my chiropractor for years. And it was shortly after that I reached out and talked to Dr. Nick and Nicole. Now, I want to tell you that I tried celery juice, I tried the Medical Medium book, the diet from the Medical Medium book, I tried working with another health coach who could try to implement the Medical Medium stuff for me, and it's not that that stuff isn't valuable, it is, all of it is. One thing I've learned in my life is that it doesn't matter what you're working on, it's never one thing, there's no silver bullet, it's usually 7 things. And you need to do all 7 things in order to really solve what's going on. So I'm still drinking celery juice. Actually, I missed it. 4 days ago was my 3-year anniversary. 3 years, celery juice every single morning. And I still use chiropractor every week. And it wasn't enough. There was something really going on and I needed real answers. And while I had been trying things by myself, some of you watched as I very quickly went from this big to this big in a very short amount of time. And I know many of you were like, Stacey, I'm worried about you. What's going on? And what happened was there were some things that I tried to detox and cleanse myself that literally made me blow up even more. My body was trying to tell me something. In fact, I will just share with you, and for those of you who don't know my journey, this is actually the 7th time in my life that I will be dropping weight again. I have dropped between 40 and 100 pounds 6 times already. This is the 7th time, so I'm not new to this. I know exactly how to do this. And one time when I was doing what I know to do to flush my body and cleanse myself, and I did a green juice cleanse because that's my like circuit breaker, nothing's working, we have to do like the final straw. I did green juice, and in 7 days, I grew 13 pounds in 7 days. Can you imagine going up by 13 pounds in 7 days? It's very crazy. It's crazy. And so I finally had a call with Dr. Nicole. So my first phone call was with Dr. Nicole. We were not in person. It was over the phone. And I ran through, she had me do, before talking to Nick and Nicole, I had to do like, I don't know, a doctoral on my health history, which is right? Like we should be, well, you can't guess when it comes to health. That's what I love about these two, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. No guessing. Stop the guessing. It's enough with the guessing. There's real answers, and we have to find them based on facts. And so I love that about them. I went through and got all my facts. Oh, now the sun is changing my light, but we'll hang on one second. We'll edit that piece. Hang on. Pause.
Oh my
Pause.
God.
Point of high drama. Coming back.
That's my light.
Okay. Where was I? Oh. I had a call with Nicole.
Doctoral that you had to do.
Yes, she received the doctoral of my health history. I had a call with Nicole. I didn't see her in person. We did it over the phone. And within like 20 minutes, she's like, well, I already know you don't have an evacuation channel. And I'm like, what? Well, first of all, what's an evacuation channel? And why don't I have one of those? Was I not born with one? Is that like tonsils? You get them out? And so she explained, and it's made so much sense, right? That because of everything that I've been through, and we can talk about that later, my body didn't have a way to get things out. And so to protect me, my body was surrounding me with swelling, water, fat, all of the things it could do to keep the bad stuff out of my primary organs and stuff, and especially out of my spinal cord, which is what that was on that bonus day, because that's where my virus was heading towards, in order to protect me. So every time I was trying to get stuff out, because I didn't fix the evacuation channel, my body was like, I can't get it out, I can't let it hit her organs, so let me pack on more stuff to protect her from it. And it was then that I started to realize, which is what I've told you all so many times in so many forms, your body is not your enemy. Your body loves you so much, and your body is going through so much to keep you here. Your body is doing so much to protect you. Your body, even the things that you think you don't like, your body is doing for you. Your body is never fighting you. And it was only my mental stuff that told me, why am I getting so big? Why? I know how to do this. My diet is more pristine than Dr. Nicole's diet. Like, I could be like, why is this happening? I was the one telling myself my body is not supporting me, when the truth was, just like in relationship, we tell ourselves sometimes our partner is the problem, and the truth is my body was trying to save me. And my body is still saving me, and thank God, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. And nothing else matters. Nothing else matters on this journey, except that my body is becoming 100% whole health every single day, because that is my natural state and my birthright. And I am doing what I can to align with the whole state of my body being at 100% wellness. Thanks to the work that Nick and Nicole do, I'm able to get myself in line with what my body knows I need. And so I have been on this journey since then. And I will just tell you that I don't talk about this a lot out in the muggle world, because people would still look at my size and be like, oh, maybe it's not working. I will just tell you that, like, I have boatloads of energy that I did not have 3 years ago. I haven't thrown up in more than 2 years. It used to be daily, no matter what I ate. I have strength. I don't have pains. You know how many ribs Dr. Katie has had to pop back in for me over the years because my unfortunate weakness was when things would escalate too much inside my body, my ribs would slip out. It's not easy. It's painful. There was one time I was doing an RBR, and that morning at 4 a.m. after rowing, Dr. Katie came to my hotel room and popped 3 ribs back in place before doing a 15-hour RBR day and taped me up so that you guys wouldn't see it. The amount of things that doesn't happen to me anymore. Like, I am super strong. Like, I have tremendous energy. I am thrilled and happy, and I still have work to do on my evacuation channels and all the other things that we found. But who cares? Like, I'm doing it. It's every single day, and it's awesome. And it's a totally different feeling. It's kind of like when you didn't know what was wrong in your relationship and you had despair and you thought, I don't know if there's any way for anything to be fixed, and I don't want to ruin our family. I don't want to get divorced. And then you found relationship development. You're like, holy crap, there's a reason. There's a real thing. There's these dynamics. I see it now. I have tools. I might not be doing it all yet, but I know what it is, and I know it can be done, and these people have done it, and I'm doing it. I'm already getting results, and I'm going to get more results. Thank God. It's the exact same experience I have had with Nick and Nicole. Everything that they do with us, and by the way, Paul has been through a health journey with them. Grace, Jake, we've all been through treatments and all kinds of amazing journeys of improving our health and achieving whole wellness with Nick and Nicole. And it gave us the same freedom that, oh my God, there's an answer. There's a reason. P.S. It has nothing to do with I'm not good enough or I decided to eat a pint of ice cream today. It has everything to do with I didn't know. Why didn't I know that? Why didn't anybody tell me that? I would be no problem doing that. Like, let's solve this. There's all these solutions. And it gives you hope in the beginning. And then once you start to see results, you're like, this is it. And I'll just keep doing this it doesn't matter. Like, this is my journey. I am going to have the creation of wellness in me forever. And nothing can ever take that away because I know that Dr. Nick and Dr. Nicole have the answers, and they've given that to us, and it's my moral obligation to pass that along to all of you. There's nothing more important than love and your well-being. Living a life without love is not living, but if our bodies are not here to live it, or our health takes us away from our family, that's not okay. Like, our health is our fundamental life force energy that we are here on the planet with. And there are answers today. So whether it's for you or a family member or one of your kids or all of the above, I want you to know that there's an answer. And that's why I'm introducing you to Nick and Nicole today and their solution. They're going to teach you stuff today on this class and also give you a way to always have that solution for your family so that you don't end up in a despair situation wondering, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what the answer is. Or like me, by the way, I think a year or so before I started talking to Nick and Nicole, I had gone through the specialist round. I had 8 written prescriptions for 8 different surgeries sitting on my desk, none of which I was going to have, because every specialist was like, well, I can fix this part, I can fix this part, I can fix this part. But when I would say, well, what about the other things that I'm seeing? They're like, well, I don't really know what that is, but I know I can fix this part with this surgery, and I know I can fix this part with this surgery, and we can remove that so you won't have a problem with that anymore. I'm like, I think if I have an organ and it has a problem, I'm not sure that removing it is actually the solution for that problem, but I might be naive, I don't know. And so none of them had an answer for all of it, and luckily my intuition knew enough, and my journey through wellness and health before this knew enough to say, none of that is actually going to fix this. I need to keep searching for a whole solution that can actually solve all of it. And for me, that was absolutely Nick and Nicole, and it has been since day one. And literally from the first time I went through, and we're going to talk about all kinds of testing and stuff today, it became a journey in facts and solutions and no more guessing. I went from decades of guessing what was wrong to having hundreds of pages of PDF documents of lab results. And I love me some lab results because those are real factual numbers, labs that nobody, that conventional medicine doesn't know to ask for or do or read, that Nick and Nicole do all day long, all the time. Results that are real, that are meaningful, that are numeric, where you can literally track your progress and see the solutions taking place. And it's very freeing and very empowering, very wonderful. And I don't really know if I would be able to be here still standing up and doing this for all of you if I wasn't 3 years into my healing journey. And it took about, I would say, like, for me, and I was really, 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 really far gone. And I'm an older woman, so my body's had decades of accumulating this stuff. But for me, it took me a few months to get the advancement of my viruses and stuff to stop advancing. And then we enter the phase of, now let's start reversing them. And I'm years into the reversing phase and getting healthier and healthier and healthier and more well and capable every single day. And I'm vibrant and happy, and that's why Paul and I really want to pay this forward. And my husband, as you all know, his sole purpose and why he came to this planet is to protect me through my journey on this planet, and my health is his number one focus all the time. So Paul's passion for what Nick and Nicole were doing, like, Paul's the one, he's like, get in the car, we're going to Nick and Nicole's. Saturday, get in the car, we're going to Nick and Nicole's. It's Saturday, everybody get in the car, we're going to Nick and Nicole's. Like, Paul's champion for making sure that this happened for everybody's benefit and for our family as well, is really, really is stellar. And he's had his own healing journey as well. And I'm sure as Nicole presents the solutions and the facts and the answers that you deserve and you need today, I'll interject with examples and stories of the four of us and the experiences and the healings that we've been able to have in the past few years working with Nick and Nicole. So I know that was a long story to introduce this journey and this topic, but that's where my passion is for this, and that's why I love these two people with my whole heart, and I literally trust them with my life and the life of my husband and my children. And so with that, welcome, Nick and Nicole. Thank you for being here. Thank you for serving us. And can you tell, in your words, our Relationship You Tribe, a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so we're going to go into kind of giving you guys a good understanding of everything that we do, how we even got to doing what we do in the first place. But
oh, good.
Just like a couple of things that I even want to comment on about what you were saying is that you're so right when your body is constantly adapting. And I think it's a really important thing for people to understand is that what we often perceive as bad or perceive as a symptom, a lot of times that's really the warning sign of the body saying, hey, there's something going on. But we live in a world right now that there are millions of drugs that are just available to suppress what that symptom is and to take away that signal. And it's also when it comes to all of the different things that you tried even before coming to us, like you said, is everything was great. You were doing all of these positive things for yourself, but what we've realized over time is that it's about strategy. It's about, you have to do the right things at the right time, and you have to do what's right for your body.
100%.
And I want to say that early because I think it's so frustrating for people that they get on Google University and they're like, okay, keto, okay, paleo, or the juice cleanse, and they're trying all these things, and then they're just like, throw their hands up in the air. This isn't working for me. And they give up.
100%. 100%.
It's just every single person is so different and their needs are different. And maybe keto is good for you, but maybe not right now.
Right.
And that's the really cool thing that you take away from the type of testing that we do is it's about timing. It's about strategy. It's not just about the cookie cutter, amazing protocol, supplement, diet, etc.
Amen. Amen. And just to anchor that in,
Not much to add to that.
just to anchor that in, before I had worked with Dr. Nick and Dr. Nicole, I knew one of the viruses that I had, and I did a detox for it. And that was the week that I went up 13 pounds in 7 days, because like Dr. Nicole just said, like, it's not that we shouldn't eliminate that virus, we should, but if you don't have an evacuation channel yet, where is it going? It's going like, whoa, protector. Whereas if I had worked on my evacuation channels, which is what Nicole and Nick did first, and give it a way to get out, then when your body is ready to remove that, we can remove that. But she knew, and he knew from their testing, we can't remove this yet. It's first A, then it's B, then it's C, then it's D. So the right things at the right time in their test for that. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's so important. And it's really, when it comes to looking at the big picture, is that you could get a bunch of tests done and easily be overwhelmed and think like, oh my gosh, I have viruses, I have infections, I have a poor functioning immune system. And you're like, oh, where do I start? But there's always a foundation. There's always a foundational problem that is really the key to the umbrella of different symptoms. And that's something that was really for you is, this is not about killing the viruses or boosting the immune system. This is about just setting the foundation so that you can eliminate things properly on your own.
Yes.
And this is a very common denominator that I see with a lot of people, is that we don't realize how much we're being exposed to on a day-to-day basis. And then it's like the very simple concept of a vacuum. You have a vacuum, it has a filter, you keep using it, the filter gets more and more full. And even though your vacuum is the beautiful Dyson that you spent $300 on, it's not working because the filter is full. And it's a very similar concept that's happening within the human body, because we are being constantly bombarded with different environmental toxins, different things that are in our lotions, even the baby products that were being marketed to put on our children. And the toxicity accumulates like a snowball over a lifetime. Yeah. And this is something that is going to create all of the mystery symptoms.
Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful that you're here. Dr. Nick, I know you're also very passionate about what you do and how you serve. Just tell us a little bit about your passion, what you do, and then we'll start into the class.
Yeah, so as far as mystery symptoms, I tend not to deal with as much mystery as Dr. Nicole. I'm more passionate about the nervous system and neurology, so I do a lot of functional neurology, dealing with anywhere from post-concussion symptoms, a lot of trauma aspects. I've had 13 concussions myself, so because the conventional organic medicine could not help me, I had a lot of symptoms myself that nobody could figure out. So from depression, a lot of anger, everything from these post-concussion symptoms that nobody could resolve. And I had it for years, and it took me to a dark place. Unfortunately, I used alcohol to find peace. But eventually I got out of that and kept learning, and finally figured out how to heal myself. And
AKA he was my guinea pig before we did all the testing we do now.
Nice.
So that's my biggest passion. But I realized, even with all of my neurology, is that that's only one system, and everything affects everything in the human body. So it's like, we can be emotionally taxed and have loose stools and stomach issues.
Right.
That's an emotional thing causing a problem in the physical body. So it's like, it's just ignorance that we tend to try to fix a system only by looking at that one system.
Amen.
now with neurology and bringing around the integrative aspect, I'm able to get results so much quicker and not waste so many years.
Amen.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We work so closely together though, because our knowledge base is so similar, but then there's just we have different passions and different interests, and we're constantly bouncing ideas, consulting. So I think that's a really important dynamic when it comes to your physicians as well, is having a team, because different practitioners pick up on different things. And we love that, because, we'll talk and he's like, wow, I didn't even pick up on that. And I'll say the same, vice versa. And we're able to bring the knowledge together. So I definitely think collaboration is so huge, and case management is huge. But that is unfortunately something that lacks in conventional medicine, because, like you said, is you have your cardiologist, your urologist, the gynecologist, etc. Like, everything is so segregated, assuming that everything is not communicating with each other in the body.
Right.
So.
Great point. Love it. Thank you.
So I have my lovely, beautiful PowerPoint that I made for all of you guys, and it's mainly so I don't go off on tangents, but I'm definitely super happy to ask or answer questions as we go. So I'm going to kind of go in and just start to give you guys a little bit of a background on us. But Integrative Wellness Group, Stacey, even a little bit.
I love you, Stacey. I got to run.
I love you too, Nick. Thank you so much.
And Stacey, being in the group that we were in together, saw some of the beginning stages of our practice. But I think that one of the biggest things that never changed from day one was the fact that we were always pressing the envelope, always asking questions. And what I realized is that most of my patients did not match the textbook, number one. And number two is that, when it comes to medicine, like, most of what I was taught didn't make sense. I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. Like, is anybody using their brain anymore? And I just kept questioning, and then I kept digging, learning, and evolving how we looked at the patient, but then started to evolve the type of testing that we did as well. Because I realized that most of what I was taught was looking at the body in one view, and it was constantly looking at chemistry. And what's fascinating about that is when you think about your blood work, and if you have abnormalities in your blood work, it's like you have broken chemistry. So the primary way that we are geared to manipulate that is through chemistry, AKA drugs, pharmacology. So the entire foundation of what we know as healthcare and medicine is really built off looking at one system. But then you start to dabble in Chinese medicine, and you look at acupuncture and meridians, and then you look at emotional health, and all of it is important. It doesn't mean that everybody needs all of those things. It just means that you might be thinking that your gut issue is a gut issue, but maybe it's connected to something completely different.
Yeah.
So we've opted to really look beyond just, hey, let's look at your gut and then we'll look at your brain. We're looking at how is everything communicating with each other, essentially.
Yes. Awesome.
And for me, I work with so many different types of conditions, and it's not because it's about the condition. It's about having the ability to look beyond the symptoms, look beyond the diagnosis, and to figure out, like, what is the root cause? What is the common denominators? And you said it, Stacey, as well, is it's not one thing. You don't just have a virus. You don't just have, a gut issue. Usually there is a collaboration of different things that are causing the symptoms that most of you have now classified as your normal. You've classified your brain fog as normal. Oh, I'm getting older, but you're like 32. You've classified your memory loss as being normal. You've classified the fact that you get bloated every time you eat pasta as normal. Your headaches are normal. So we just adapt and we assume that this is what we need to settle for. And it's really not. It's about digging deeper and knowing what's available to you so that you can work with mild symptoms, but then you can even resolve the extreme diagnoses like Lyme disease and toxicity and, dizziness, vertigo, etc. I don't get intimidated by the cases that come through my doors because I know I have the ability to deconstruct it to figure out what is the root cause of it. Booker, are you getting upset with my presentation? My dog is like whining. So one of the cool things too is I have it here. One of the recent creations was actually the Institute for Integrative Wellness, which has been an amazing endeavor that we've embarked on. But we really felt compelled that we want to obviously help families and help our patients, but we can only do so much in our office. And we know that it starts with really transforming how other doctors are thinking and how other naturopaths are thinking and acupuncturists, etc. And our goal is to also teach our practices to other physicians so that we can really give healthcare a facelift.
Amen.
Boy, it needs it.
Awesome.
So my story is a little bit different than Dr. Nick. It's kind of interesting because I remember feeling guilty about my story because I didn't have one. I remember when I was going through school, everybody's like, oh, I'm in school for this because, you know, an integrative doctor saved my life, or I was like bedridden and then this doctor helped me. And I was like, I'm kind of just interested in this and I just want to help people. And I just remember feeling guilty about that. And then when I actually did my own testing and I got a baseline, I realized I actually wasn't healthy at all. But I didn't, if you asked me, do you have symptoms or do you feel sick? I would have easily answered no. So I had to almost marinate on my results. And I had mercury toxicity, I had parasitic infections, I had a bad brain injury that was actually causing what is now called POT syndrome. They actually didn't know what that was when I was experiencing these symptoms. And I really kind of sat back and I was like, wow, I guess most of these things that I'm experiencing are my normal. And this is the conversation that constantly comes up in my office. And I think this kind of happened with Paul too, because you came in for you and I'm like, how are those sinuses, dude? And he's like, what? And he just like, it was his normal. He didn't even know. And I'm like, I can tell that you can't breathe. And he was just like, yeah, I guess. So it's interesting because the brain fog, the moodiness, the PMS, the bloating, you know, all of those things become the normal. And most of the people you talk to around you are experiencing some of those symptoms as well. So it normalizes it even further.
Amen.
Yeah. So when I started to embark on my own journey and I started to peel away the layers, I was like, holy crap, I didn't even know how bad I felt. I had no idea that I was so foggy. And I remember thinking back to school, and I remember thinking, having all this negative self-talk in school of, you're not cut out for this. You're not smart enough. Why do you have to study so much harder? Why do you have to read this page 3 times to comprehend it? And like, you know, I know a lot of people deal with this. And I then was like thinking about my results. I'm like, I had one of the primary neurotoxins in my body skyrocketed off of the charts with how high my mercury level was. And I'm like, I'm lucky I graduated. You know, it was just, you know, so interesting. But I'm like, how many other kids are being deemed to have disabilities or learning issues when in reality they're just toxic? So that is one of the biggest reasons why I love doing these types of webinars. And last year I did 48 webinars, guys. So for those of you, I know Stacy's like, what, are you crazy? But I
would have been fine if it was 48 of the same webinar, but you actually created 48 different webinars and taught 48 different classes. And I'm like, Nicole!
Well,
it is insane.
I know that all of you that are here listening right now, you all have different problems. Like some of you have a gut issue. Some of you feel like you're losing your memory. Some of you have pain all over your body. And you want to know about your pain point. You want to know like, what the heck is causing this? Yes. So I just felt that it was my duty to provide value and provide information about all of the things that are coming through my doors, because everybody's coming through with a different complaint. But at the end of the day, there is always an answer and there is always a solution. And that is really important for you guys to take away. There is always, always, always a solution. Do not live in fear of your health.
Amen.
So I'm sure you guys are all paying attention, so disregard this slide. This is what I give them at night. But this is going back to even Stacy's story, and I put this slide in any PowerPoint that I do or any webinar that I do, because when you do your celery juice for X amount of, weeks, months, years, and then you're also doing green juices, you're barely eating, you're eating organic, you're exercising, you're doing all the right things, and you're like, what is wrong with me? Why is this not getting better? And it's important for you to know that it's not your fault. It is not your fault that you don't know the exact diet you should be on. It's not your fault that you don't know the exact supplements you should be on. It's not your fault that you've tried something and maybe it didn't work. It is always about understanding your body, what does your body need, and what is really the true foundational problem that you need to tackle first, and what is the strategy to tackle that? Because there is so much strategy that needs to be used in medicine instead of thinking like, oh, you're sick, antibiotic. Okay, well, what am I sick with? Is it a virus? Is it a bacteria? Is it a fungus? Nobody's even testing it anymore. Antibiotics for everyone, for everything. And it's just, it's literally, I lose my mind every day about this stuff.
I understand. I really do.
So this is, really just reiterating what we've talked about already. But first and foremost, some of the biggest detriments to the way that we look at healthcare is that we have our specialists, and then we have, the subspecialists. And this is just assuming that every system is not communicating with each other. And that if you have a liver problem, it has nothing to do with your gut, and your gut has nothing to do with your brain. When in reality, everything is in constant communication, affecting each other. And when we start pulling apart these systems and we start trying to do treatments, this is where we start ignoring basic physiology. And the simplest example I can give to you is that some say up to 95% of your serotonin, your primary feel-good hormone, is made in your gut. So if you have, a low-grade IBS, not bad enough that you need any type of treatment, and they're not talking to you about nutrition, so they're pretty much just saying like, hey, well, just don't eat too much cheese and you'll be fine. But then at the same time, you're working with your therapist or psychiatrist for your depression, and nobody is necessarily connecting the dots that your, mild gut issues can be a culprit behind why you have depression.
Yes.
So this is just one of many, many examples. And the fact that we're segregating out the systems is one of the biggest reasons why nobody is able to get to the root cause, because nobody is playing detective and asking better questions, hence why our paperwork is 26 pages.
Yes.
And people are, and it's funny, you'll see it in one of my next slides, but I ask questions that people are like looking at me like, what? Like, what does that have to do with anything? And I'm like, trust me, it will make sense soon.
Yep. And it always does.
It always does. It always does. And one of those questions is, especially in relation to mood issues, depression, anxiety, anger. And I said, do you ever notice that your mood becomes more compromised around a full moon? And they're like, what? And I'll usually pull up the date of the full moon. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I got into a blow-up fight with my husband. And I'm like, oh, you have parasites. And they're like, what are you talking about? And it's just like, you have to ask these questions to piece it together. And maybe, yeah, this person has parasites that are hijacking their behaviors, because yes, we will get into that later. But there also could just be one part of the puzzle that is connected to other things. So it's so important that we listen and we investigate. And if you're just popping into your doctor's office and they didn't ask you to fill out any paperwork and they're barely asking you questions and they're just writing that script, you need a better doctor. Let's put
100%. Yeah.
Another thing too is, I've said this before, is that we're just focused so much on chemistry in the current healthcare model, but we're completely ignoring other things. Like, I'll give you an interesting scenario that just happened. So patient comes in, he's been under my care for about a month. He comes in, he's like, I stopped all my supplements. I'm definitely having an allergic reaction. I go, okay, what's going on? He's like, well, I'm itchy and I have a rash. I'm like, where's your rash? And he's like, well, it's everywhere. I'm like, where's your rash? So he shows me where it was on his abdomen. And then he's like, and it's on my shins. It's so odd. It's on my shins. I'm like, okay. I was like, show me exactly on which side of your shin it is. So then I say, that's your spleen meridian. And he's like, okay, what does that mean? I was like, remember how we talked about the Epstein-Barr virus that's in your system? I was like, your immune system is working better, and now the virus is coming out, and let's do a little therapy on your spleen. So we did the therapy on his spleen. I didn't hear from him. So I was like, I'm assuming his itching went away. He comes back in next week, and he's like, I was like, how's your itching? He's like, oh, I forgot about it. It's completely gone. I go, so what is your lesson to be learned? Like, don't stop your supplements. I was like, no, it's don't assume that you're having an allergic reaction to your supplements.
Yeah.
So it's just things like that, if you're not versed in Chinese medicine, like your doctor's not going to ask you that question. And it was like literally super simple fix, opposed to us going through the supplements being like, ooh, is it this? Ooh, is it that? And it had nothing to do with that. Yeah. So that's definitely, it's critical thinking. It's thinking outside the box.
Yes.
And another thing too, is one of the questions that I ask people is, I'm asking them about their home. Like, are you in this high tech home, tons of Wi-Fi? Do you have like everything Bluetooth? Does your refrigerator talk to you? And they're just like, oh yeah. And as I'm doing their testing, finding that mold is part of the puzzle, or fungus issues, which actually has a lot to do with inflammation, inability to lose weight, brain fog, by the way. Booker. He's whining in the back. I'm just gonna let him out. Oh my gosh. They're like humans, I swear. So I asked this question because they've actually done a study on all of the radiation that comes off of our devices, and they found that mold will multiply by 600% per week when you're constantly bombarded with Bluetooth. So think about how many people are walking around with their Apple Watches and their Fitbits on, and they're like, I can't lose weight. My brain's so foggy. I can't function. I feel like crap. I have chronic fatigue. So, and it's not that, never wear it again in your whole life, but it's about maybe moderation, or maybe you need to take it off while you're trying to detox the bad stuff out of your body.
Yeah.
And another thing too is like, we have to always go back to everything is connected. So one of the most fascinating things is very, very early on in my practice, I wasn't always super successful at treating patients that had constipation. And I had some really severe cases that came through my doors. And what I realized was that over time, when I started to learn more functional neurology, is that sometimes constipation is not a gut problem, it's a brain problem. And it has to do with the nerve that comes from your brainstem, goes all the way down into your gut, called your vagus nerve. That doesn't function properly, then you're not gonna have signaling that's not gonna allow contractions in your gut for you to have regular bowel movements. And this could easily be from a head injury. It could be from a whiplash accident, from a car accident. So this is a person that's potentially being put on a variety of medications for their gut, or they're on Linzess or whatever else, when their constipation has zero to do with their gut and has everything to do with their brain.
Awesome.
One of the biggest mind-blowing things I would say is when people have symptoms on only one side of their body. And this sometimes is neurological, but for those of you that maybe have followed, some different practitioners, like even like Louise Hayes being one of them, but they talk a lot about how emotional things can affect the body. But the right side of the body is actually synonymous with a male figure. The left side of the body is synonymous with a female figure. And I'm actually going to tell you a story about this in the next few slides, about a woman who actually had physical issues, and it all stemmed back to a couple of emotional things that were holding her, or allowing, or causing her body to not function optimally.
Wow.
So we'll blow your mind, don't worry. If you haven't gained this already, like I'm here to tell you, you don't know what you don't know. It's impossible for you to know these things unless you get a deeper look at your body. And this is a great example, because I use thyroid in this example because I know that the majority of you that are listening have been diagnosed with a thyroid problem. And I know that because It's almost every single person that comes through my doors. It's almost every single one of my friends. Like everybody's, oh, I have hypothyroid. And then they use that as why they don't feel well. And it's like, oh, it's just my thyroid. And the interesting thing about the thyroid is when you think about where the thyroid is, it's literally right here. It's in your throat. It's surrounded by lymph nodes. It's surrounded by tonsils. It's also surrounded by sinuses. It's surrounded by, or it's affected by your neck, your spine. So if you have a thyroid condition, is it because you had a whiplash accident to your neck? Is it because you have bad sinuses? Is it because you have huge tonsils that are like completely engrossed with strep bacteria? Is it because you have a boatload of fillings in your teeth? Is it because you have swollen lymph nodes in your neck? So this is the stuff that we are looking at and asking. Like I've worked with people that have been through the ringer trying to fix their thyroid, and it actually was, all they needed was work on their neck to get the lymph draining and to fix the nerves that were connected to the thyroid. So this is not always what you think. It's sometimes something that you would never even connect the dots for.
Amazing. Amazing.
So the biggest thing is we need to stop accepting this new normal. We need to even stop accepting like you have hypothyroidism, Synthroid is your only option. Like that's not your only option. There's a million options. And maybe your thyroid is being affected by something that you completely are unaware of. And guys, let's stop the aging thing. You're not supposed to just like decline and die with age. Like everybody's like, everything crumbles when you age. And I'm like, no, it's not how it works. We could definitely negate all of that.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we're going to get into some of these myths, and some of the biggest things I'm going to bust through today is talking about like you have no control over your health because it has to do with your family history and your genetics. It has to do with, well, my testing was fine, or the fact that you're being treated for the wrong thing. And then there's also this like idea that, oh, holistic therapy is like, can that really work? Like, don't you have to come in with like the big guns of the medications? And then, oh, well, it takes a long time and I don't really know if I can get better without drugs and surgery. And then, you know, well, can't I just like wait for the vaccine to come out? Can't I just wait for like the new drug to come out? Because like, that's so much easier. I'll just do that. So let's get rolling here.
Dive in.
So first and foremost, for those of you that think you're doomed based off of your family history and based off of your genetics, that's a load of BS. And primarily because epigenetics has been studied for many, many years. And epigenetics is really telling us that our genes will change based off of the environment. So this means that if you have toxic thoughts, a toxic environment, you know, a bad boss, you eat like crap, and there's all of those other factors working against you, chances are you will feed into your predisposition. But if you lead a pretty healthy lifestyle, you try to de-stress yourself, then chances are you will not end up with any of the illnesses that run in your family. So it's very important to understand that genetics is something that it's important to understand, but it is not the end-all be-all, and it is definitely not going to be the primary player in your health journey. The other thing too is getting into you're being treated as a whole person. I think that we expect or assume that our doctor is taking all things into consideration, but sometimes that's not the case. So for me, I was dealing with gut issues, and I would have never admitted it in a million years, but I definitely had depression and anxiety. And I was also starting to deal with dizziness, but the dizziness would come on when I would actually do cardiovascular workouts. So when I was going to my my gynecologist, and I was like saying, I was like, you know, I'm noticing that I'm getting like these fainting spells around my period, and they were like, oh, well, maybe you have a cyst that's ruptured. And then I was, you know, working through the dizziness, and I was actually seeing a chiropractor for that. And then they were assuming it was all just based off of my neck, when really at the end of the day, my vagus nerve was the primary problem. And this happened because I had a severe head injury from snowboarding. The severe head injury, though, was 5 years prior to me ever manifesting any symptoms. And I started to notice slowly that my gut was compromised because your vagus nerve controls your gut. I started to have heart palpitation. Your vagus nerve controls your heart rate. I also started to have shortness of breath, and then I would have fainting, which your respiratory rate as well also plays a role in your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve also controls your blood pressure. So at the end of the day, this was a nerve issue that was compromised because of scar tissue from an injury that I had. So this was not about me having to see a gastroenterologist or to be on antidepressants. This all came back to one foundational problem. This is actually another interesting case. I put cancer in quotes. I had a patient, she came in the other day, and she kind of came in because her daughter is more holistically minded, and she's watching her mother go through all of these doctors and nobody is giving her answers. So she was diagnosed with cancer 1 year prior. She did chemo, radiation, and surgically removed lymph nodes, as well as the tumors. And it's 1 year later, and she is having a ton of issues. She's having heart palpitations, she's having swelling, and then they recently just found on an MRI that she has swelling in the lymph nodes on the other side, and now they're assuming that cancer is back, and now it's in the other breast. So I started asking better questions, and I started to visually look at this woman. And as I'm visually looking at her, I can tell that she has a lot of water retention. And then I started to ask her, I was like, are you having a lot of water retention in your feet? And she's like, yes, but it's not a big deal. Like, I just elevate my feet and it goes away. And I go, how many hours of the day are you elevating your feet? She's like, well, 6. I was like, so you need to elevate your feet for 6 hours a day for you to not have swelling in your feet? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, when you do have the swelling, if you press, does it leave a dent? She goes, yes. So this is what we call pitting edema. I started to ask her more about her lungs, and she's like, I can't even go up a flight of stairs. She's like, I have to take an elevator because I can't breathe. And then she also stated she was having massive heart palpitations to the point that she almost went to the hospital. So this is a woman that they're now saying, okay, we're going to do a biopsy. We're going to do more imaging. We're going to do cancer screenings. And I looked at her, I go, this woman has congestive heart failure. So I ran my in-house testing. One of the technologies that we use looks down to the DNA level. It picks up on things very quickly. And she literally came up for pulmonary edema, congestive heart failure. And then I sent her out for blood work, and I had a call from LabCorp because her heart attack markers are in a critical range. So this is a woman that literally more than likely would have just been on a path of cancer treatment, more chemotherapy, more surgeries to remove lymph nodes, when that had nothing to do with the bigger picture of what's going on in her system. So this is the reality of what is happening to us and our loved ones. And this is why you need to be your own advocate. You need to educate yourself, because no one else is going to be more of the advocate than you. In addition, is that your doctor is looking at you and piecing together your symptoms. So most of you look at this list and you may be like, whoa, I have a lot of these symptoms. And I say that because I see it every day. Most of us feel inflamed. Most of us maybe feel puffy, and we just think, oh, it's because I didn't get enough sleep. A lot of us are, maybe getting neck pain, but not realizing that the neck pain is actually due to congestion in our lymph nodes. Some of us are saying, oh, I need to lose weight because I have a fat neck, when really it has to do with inflammation or toxins that are built up in the lymph nodes. Maybe you're urinating a lot. Maybe you have cramps on the right side of your rib cage, right below your breast or your pec muscle. Maybe you have varicose veins. Maybe you have low back pain. Maybe your weight is fluctuating 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds a day. Maybe you have skin breakouts, rashes, eczema. Maybe you wake up in the morning with a low-grade headache or even a low-grade sore throat. Every single one of these symptoms is a sign that your detox pathways do not work. And this is a combination of your liver. This is a combination of your lymphatic system, your lymph nodes, and it is also a combination that your kidneys are not working. So if you have 50% or more of these symptoms, you're in need of a detox. And don't just go buy a weird detox online. Figure out what detox is good for you. Don't waste time and money. Definitely use the resources. She's back.
Well, I'm still here the whole time. I just want us to focus. But I just want to anchor that in. Please, 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 please Do not detox because you're guessing. This literally was what sent me into, I'll never forget it. Like, I literally went from being a size 16 to a size 20 in 1 week because I did a detox, and my body went into a state of emergency because I didn't have an evacuation channel and I was trying to detox. So it's so important to get the right tests and to use a strategy. And we'll talk about that in this class. Don't worry, we're going to answer all those questions in this class. So don't just be like, okay, I got to go detox today. Like, just stay here and get the answers.
Yes. They're not all created equal.
Amen.
Actually, just recently, I actually did a 5-day fasting mimicking diet. And that was something that came up in my testing. And I'm like, holy crap, how did I not know about this before? But it was just like the ultimate reset for my body. And I think about like all the thousands and thousands of dollars that I spent on supplements in the past before we did the testing that we do now. And so much of it was just not right for me. And it was just kind of a waste. So.
Awesome.
Okay. So we all have been told that blood work is the gold standard. And the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away from this is that, number one, blood is a snapshot in time, so it can change. And this is the story for a lot of people that have autoimmune conditions. They're like, well, you know, I had a positive ANA, which is, just to keep it simple, it's a marker for autoimmunity. And they're like, but then I went back and then it was normal. So clearly I don't have an autoimmune condition. And then they got blood work again, and then it was positive again, and then it was negative. So it's a snapshot in time. It is definitely not the end all be all. And if you are trying to make decisions about your health strictly just based off of blood work, you're going to get yourself into a pickle, because it is only a snapshot and it is only one piece of the puzzle. In addition to that, I had the luxury of sitting next to someone on a plane who ended up working very high up in LabCorp, and he was actually in control of the labs where they process the blood. And he specifically worked in oncology, so cancer. And what he said to me, he goes, you know, there's a lot of error when it comes to testing. He's like, there's error on behalf of the technology. There's error on behalf of the humans, like the techs that are processing these samples. He's like, if the sample was not held at the right temperature, if the sample wasn't spun for long enough, if the sample didn't have the right reagents put into it, there is a lot of variables and there's a lot of room for human error. So what this means is that you potentially are getting diagnosed with something that maybe you don't really have, or you're not being diagnosed with something that you do have. So we take various different types of modalities and testing, and we piece it together for it to actually make sense. Because if I look at your blood and assume, oh, wow, Epstein-Barr virus, okay, that must be the primary problem, I'm doing you a disservice by just assuming that that's the primary problem. The other thing too is that we leverage some really unique testing that, again, goes down to the DNA level. So if you do have a virus that comes up in your blood, a lot of times your question is, well, what is it doing? Like, what is it affecting? What symptoms is it causing? Most of the time doctors can't give you that answer. Like, they can give you the textbook answer. Oh, well, you know, Epstein-Barr virus will cause mono, and then you'll be really chronically tired. Doesn't always look like that. So some of the technologies that we use is we're able to say, hey, the Epstein-Barr is actually affecting your thyroid. That's what's dropping your thyroid levels and making you fatigued. So you can get really, really specific once you start leveraging other tests. The other big thing is that she's got something.
First of all, I just want to say that we just fixed my microphone. The microphone that I always use, I didn't realize wasn't on, and it was trying to pick up from a different mic, which is why I had feedback. So hopefully that fixes it. But the testing is so, so, so important. And there's so much testing, and I love it. I'll never forget the day that I remember asking Nicole, I'm like, okay, so should we do another round of blood tests? And she's like, oh, blood is last. I would trust blood last. And I'm like, what now? And I'm like, whoa, like that's incredible. And just to anchor that in, I'll never forget, we were standing in the office at IWG, and Nicole comes up to Paul and she goes, hey, bud, I have your test back from, and it was not from blood, it was from a different test. And she's like, so when we look at mold toxicity, if someone has like 2,000, we consider that to be like, it's mold, it's toxicity, we need to do treatment. She's like, do you want to guess what yours is? And Paul's like, I don't know, 4,000? She's like, 55,000, dude. 55,000 is your mold. Let's go. And he's like, okay, holy crap. So like the testing is so unbelievable and so specific, and it is so incredible. Yeah, and so all four of us had it, obviously. And we went through the solutions, and it's so important. But like the testing, and I had literally been through plenty of testing from conventional medicine, like blood testing. Nothing like what Nick and Nicole are able to do. The testing is the gift of being able to finally see everything for real. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, and even with just even outside of blood work, so that's like this slide is just even piggybacking off of stool samples. So there's a lot of people that are dealing with gut issues, and maybe they're seeing a functional practitioner and they're like, hey, got to do a stool sample. We got to figure out what's going on in your gut. And this was something that honestly confused me when I was early on in my practice, is that you assume that the stool sample is going to pick up on what's in the gut. And what I realized, and this actually happened because he was about 6 years old, but he had a lot of sensory issues, and we were trying to treat him for candida, which came up in his stool sample. So as we're treating him for the candida, because he had so many sensory issues, especially with his mouth, mom was like, hey, I think it would be better for us to do a suppository, which for those of you that don't know what that is, it's like a way there's different suppositories to detox, but you put them into the rectum when you go to bed. But she's like, it would be easier to do this because he's not going to take any supplements orally. Like he's not going to do any of that because of the sensory issues. And I said, if that's what works, we'll do that. So she was using the suppository, and she saw worms. And so she reaches out to me, and I'm like, that's crazy. Why would the stool sample not pick that up? So then we did another stool sample. Then we did a stool sample through a different company. All of them were negative. And she's like, listen, I saw worms 4 times. What are we doing about it? Yep. So we just started an anti-parasitic protocol, and yep, he had worms. I saw pictures. So that is something that's really important, is that number one is that even with better testing, it doesn't always pick up on these things. So if you're being treated for some type of, bacterial issue in your gut or a candida issue, but really at the end of the day, you have parasites, you're the person that's frustrated. You're like, why am I not getting better? I'm spending all this money. I'm doing all the right things. Like, what the heck? So trust me, I've seen it a million times. And the other crazy thing too, is that parasites, the only test really available is stool samples to maybe pick up on parasites, but parasites don't always live in your gut. They can live in your brain. Not to totally freak you guys out, but that's why they tell pregnant women to not change the cat litter when you're pregnant, because cats give off a parasite that affects the neurological system that is now being connected to bipolar disease. So this is definitely things to understand, and there are ways that you can screen more accurately for parasites and be able to have an understanding of, are they affecting you, and what can you do about getting rid of them?
Yes.
So this, I kind of told you guys a bit already, is, a lot of people think that once you dabble outside of your conventional tests, your blood work and your urine analysis, why isn't everybody using these tests? Like, if they worked, wouldn't every doctor use them? And no, it's primarily just because they're trained in a specific way, and a lot of their training revolves around pharmacology. So if you start leveraging different testing, that results usually in a different solution, but most of the solution is supposed to be geared towards making big pharma a bunch of money. So I already told you guys this story about the skin reaction when it came back to end up being a meridian issue and a spleen issue. But this one is really interesting with the chest x-ray. So we had a patient who came in, we did our preliminary test using our DNA-based testing, and she actually ended up having different things coming up in her lung, she had things coming up in her liver, and she had some things coming up in her kidney as well. So we went forward, we did the rest of her testing. We did a chest x-ray as well, because primarily what was coming up through my testing was sarcoidosis, which is a pretty serious condition of the lung. So I wanted to make sure that we did some different testing to really verify, is this part of the puzzle? So we did a chest x-ray, and it was confirmed that she had sarcoidosis that was developing in the lower lobe of her right lung. The lower lobe of your right lung pretty much borders your liver, by the way. So through her blood work, her enzymes, her liver enzymes were elevated. And then she didn't have kidney stones at the moment, but she just got over kidney stones, specifically in the right kidney, I think 6 months before she came to see me. So if you remember what I said earlier, is that the right side of the body is synonymous with a male figure. So with so much stuff going on the right side of the body, I just wanted to ask. And I wasn't going to assume that this had any emotional ties, but I wanted to ask and make sure so I didn't miss anything. And in Chinese medicine, there is synergies with specific emotions tied to organs. So the kidneys are tied to fear, the liver is tied to anger, resentment, judgment, and then the lungs are tied to grief. And I said to her, I go, I don't mean to pry, but I just want to be sure that we cover all of our bases. But is there potentially a male figure in your life now or in the past that you are feeling a level of grief or fear or even anger towards? And she's like, looks at me, breaks down crying, and she just says, my husband's been cheating on me and I'm grieving the idea that I have to divorce him. And I was like, oh crap. All right, well, that's a big part of the puzzle here. So for this person, it's not that she didn't have physical issues. She clearly had physical issues that had to be tended to, but it's like building a brand new house on a crappy foundation. So if she's living in this extremely stressful environment and she is debating every day in her mind, like, am I getting divorced? Am I not? Like, am I going to confront this? Am I not? Then it would be really difficult for me to say, here, spend money on treatments and therapies, when we know that there is a whole other piece of the puzzle here that is very foundational to the healing process. So we ask these questions because we know that it's important for your emotional health is equally as important as your physical health. Ooh, okay, there we go. So the other thing too is we hear, all of the updates of what's going on. Oh, genetic testing. Oh, we're on the, the cutting edge. And we assume that here in the US that we're on the cutting edge for healthcare and that we're constantly making advancements. And unfortunately, the more that I learn, the more I realize we're not. And I'm going to give you just a really interesting example. And I think that I wanted to give you this example because it's very important. But a lot of us are doing preventative screenings for breast cancer right now because maybe people in our family have had it and we're living in fear that we are next. And we're doing genetic testing like the BRCA gene, and then if it is coming back as being mutated, we are being recommended to do something surgical, double mastectomy, single mastectomy, etc. The interesting thing is the protocol is, okay, if you are going to get the mastectomy, then we are going to then put in these spacers, and these spacers are going in order to create space in the tissue, or tissue expanders is the technical term, create space within the tissue to then prepare for implants. The most interesting thing about this is that our whole goal of doing the testing and doing the mastectomy is to prevent cancer, when now they have actually correlated the tissue expanders to a very specific type of lymphoma. And in addition is they have now also linked the breast implants that are textured, meaning that they have a coating on them. They have the coating so that they create an immune response, so they anchor to your tissue and your muscle. Those have also now been connected to lymphoma. So this is really, really important for you guys to understand, is that when we think we're on the cutting edge, we're not. And all of the, testing that us weird doctors are doing are actually helping to push medicine forward and give people more natural solutions so that they don't feel that a double mastectomy is their only option.
Amen. I cannot say enough about this. I think it's the exact same thing about relationship. People learn about relationship development and they're like, why isn't everybody doing this then? Why isn't every therapist and counselor in the world teaching this? Because they don't know it and they're not taught to teach this. And so us weirdos out here are actually teaching the solution to real families so that you can move it forward. And that's the exact same thing that's going on here with Nick and Nicole. And I can't even tell you the number of women that I know that have publicly declared in the last few years that they've had their implants removed and all kinds of things because their health was deteriorating, and eventually they did their own research and found out it was the implant that was causing that. So it's so important that just like in relationship, no one's going to fix your marriage, your family, and your household. We're going to train you how to do it. No one is ever going to be a better health advocate for you and your family than you. And so we're training you how to think and get answers and all of these solutions so that you can be the greatest advocate for your family. I love it, love it, love it.
100%. And the other thing too is, like, we've talked so much about testing, but there's also not a gold standard with treatment as well. And even some of the gold standards that exist, like I work with a lot of patients that are dealing with Lyme disease, and the gold standard of protocols is antibiotics. And what's fascinating is within the past 5 years, they've done a ton of testing, and they're doing testing primarily because now everybody has what's called post-Lyme syndrome, AKA their symptoms are either completely back or they're worse than they were before they ever did the treatment in the first place. And what they're realizing is that all of these different infections are super evolved. And especially when you get into the world of Lyme disease, is that you're administering the antibiotic. And Lyme is so fascinating because you get infected. It's in this little round body cyst. Like, think of like a little tapioca pearl. It's moving around your body. It's figuring out where it wants to live, and it goes to vulnerable tissue. So if you were a basketball player and you have a bunch of knee problems, it's going to go to your knees. And then you're like, oh, I have knee problems. Or if you have bad kidneys because maybe you worked as a mechanic and you were exposed to a ton of toxins that got into your blood, then it's going to go to your kidneys. So it's not your textbook of joint pain. But it moves around, goes to where it needs to go, and then it hatches into a corkscrew, and it corkscrews itself into the tissue, and it's like, boom, this is my new home. But what they've realized is you give the antibiotic, and what happens is the corkscrew goes back into the round body cyst, like the little tapioca pearl. But the round body cyst is like a shell, and it's like pretty much in the shell looking at the antibiotic being like, ha ha ha, you can't kill me because this is my protective like armor essentially. But when it's in the round body cyst, you have no symptoms. So then what happens, and that's on this next slide, is that they have actually found with specific antibiotics is that these round body cysts are either doubling or even up to quadrupling. And then it takes 4, 6, maybe even up to 12 weeks that you're like, oh my God, I feel so much better, finally. But everything starts hatching back into those corkscrews, and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Did I get reinfected? Oh my gosh, what is this? I'm having a relapse. And really at the end of the day, the problem never went away. It's just reigniting itself after a couple of weeks of being off the antibiotic. So this is not just, with Lyme disease, this is the case that we are overusing and abusing antibiotics left and right. We have created super bugs. When I talk to people about strep, I'm like, strep can't even be touched anymore by antibiotics because we've used it so much, and strep has evolved, and it's kind of like, screw you, I'm going to learn how to beat you. And it's honestly, I see way better results with the natural stuff. And, you know, it's just these antibiotics are being so overly consumed. And in addition to that is antibiotics are in your food, people. Like, it's in your chicken, it's in your beef, it's in all of that if you're not trying to buy better food. So you might be like, oh, well, I don't even take antibiotics. Like, that's so not my thing. But you might be eating Purdue chicken and you might be getting a dose of antibiotics every single day.
Amen.
So we have to be aware of our food as well.
I just want to anchor that in, that it is in more than just limes, because that's literally exactly what happened to me. And from 2014 to 2015, I found something that finally worked. I thought worked for me. I started to feel so much better. I shrank. That was the 6th time that I had to drop between 40 and 100 pounds. I shrank back down. I'm like, finally, this is the real answer. And then as soon as it was a supplement, from a medical doctor. And then as soon as I went off that supplement, all of a sudden it was like, what just happened? This is the worst it's ever been in my whole 40 years. And it was exactly that. I felt like this is 5 times as bad as the worst I've ever had. And it almost took me down until I realized and started working with Nick and Nicole. What I thought was a cure last time was really just it sent it into hibernation so it could grow stronger. And once I took the lever off, it was like, thank you so much for that break, because we totally built up an army while you were looking the other way. So here we go. And so I just want you to know, and I see this happening with family members of mine who go on prescription medicine, and they're like, oh, thank God I don't have that anymore. And I'm watching them and I'm like, it's not that you don't have it, it's just getting stronger in hibernation because you didn't solve it. It's a really common pattern, and if we can see it, we can do something about it. If it stays invisible to us, we just cannot.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, so many of my patients that come in with symptoms and I start looking at their medications, half of their symptoms are side effects of their medications. It's crazy. And, you know, any medication that's only been created in the past 3, 4, 5 years, like, you're the guinea pig.
Yeah, no.
You know, we would assume that it's being tested properly, but really, you know, they're like, we did a little bit of testing, but really now we just have to see what happens to the people that use it, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, hope that it's good.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, but, you know, and even like getting into, like, we've talked about the testing and how important it is, but, you know, I wanted to put this slide in here because there's so many things that get revealed, as Stacy knows, when you're doing some of the testing that we do. And like, one of the technologies we use, the bioresonance, it can pick up on things that you're not going to find easily in other tests. And just actually in the past 3 months, I've had 3 people come in with hair loss for different reasons. One woman was diagnosed with discoid lupus, like all of her hair pretty much falling out with the exception of the top of her head. Had a little girl come in, 5 years old, with alopecia. She's going to be bald. If she didn't come here, she'd be bald within the next like 6 months at least. And then had another woman who she wasn't fully bald, but she brought in her hair sample, and her hair sample was like a bag this big. And I'm like, you didn't have to bring this much hair. She's like, no, that was every day I brush my hair, that's how much hair I lose. And I was like, oh my gosh. But the bioresonance, what happened is it picked up on this really interesting chemical called tetrachloromethane. Tetrachloromethane is actually a chemical that can be found in like aerosol sprays, and it can also be found in water contamination in certain areas. So this is an awesome tool for you guys. But if you're curious, like, hey, am I getting exposed to toxins? Is there potentially anything harmful in my environment, my town where I live? There is a website called scorecard.org. And I use this consistently. Like, I'll pull it right up when I'm in consultations with patients. But scorecard.org, you type in your zip code, it tells you the top chemicals that are in the air and in the water and the companies that have contributed to the pollution. And I found that all 3 of these people lived in areas where tetrachloromethane was actually getting into the water. And a lot of people are like, but I use a purification system. I go, what are you cooking with? And they're like, well, I'm cooking with tap water, but the heat kills everything off. I'm like, the heat doesn't kill chemicals. It just kills bacteria. So we have to be aware of the environment and where we are living, because especially for those of you that are New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, like we're all glowing, just so you know. She might be okay out there in Boise, but we're glowing at least here. So some of the biggest things is that, when it comes to healing, is it doesn't have to be difficult, but it very often is not going to match the textbook. It's not going to be your textbook protocol. Oh, you have Lyme disease? Okay, we'll just treat it. 5 weeks, doxycycline, we're good to go. Chances are you don't have one thing going on, so you have to be looked at as an integration. And second of all is that maybe antibiotics are a good choice for you, but there's so many different types. Why are we going to assume that doxycycline is the best? Why don't we leverage better testing to figure out which one is better? Which one is going to cause the least amount of side effects? So you can get extremely specific, getting away from this idea that it's a one size fits all. It kills me when I even see people in my industry that are like, oh, the Candida diet. Oh, just take this supplement. This supplement is going to change your life. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
I just want to say, I have to anchor this in because Paul and I have a policy now, that we will not take any supplement until the testing has been done for that supplement for my body. And the testing tells me, is it this brand or this brand? Is it this brand or this brand? Is it, the bottle says three times a day. I just went through this with Dr. Katie recently. I'm like, well, the bottle says 1 dropper once a day. She's like, 2 drops for you 3 times a day for 3 months, and then half a dropper for a year. I'm like, okay, like the testing will literally tell you like this or this or this and how much. And it's so important because you could have the right supplement for what you're doing, but you're taking it at the wrong time or the wrong dosage, or you have the wrong brand and that one is not at all going to work for you, but this one definitely is going to work for you. And like, you have to have all the testing that they do to know.
And everything changes too. Like Stacy, you were never on the same protocol for a really, really long time. It was like, okay, let's tackle your, what do you call them? Evacuation
channels.
Evacuation channels. So it was like, okay, what are we going to do to focus on the evacuation channels? Because that's first and foremost. And then as we start to tackle that, then we're going to focus on the other layer. So it's like, people always are like, why am I doing a reevaluation at 6 weeks? I'm like, because your body's going to be very different at 6 weeks. And chances are some of your supplements that originally tested are still going to be good. And some of them we're going to discontinue. Yep. So it's about like constantly.
And you want that. You want that. You want it to change. If it's not changing, then we're not really doing anything. Why are we like, it should change. I was very much like, test me at 4 weeks. Like, trust me, I know myself. Like, I'm getting this done. Retest me again at 4 weeks. I want the next thing.
100%. It's, the body is changing. It's a good thing. But it's also, sometimes those changes bring up symptoms that are assumed to be bad. And like, we're always like, okay, is it bad? Is it just part of detox? Is it you getting over a hump? X, Y, Z. So we're always able to troubleshoot those things, and you don't have to be scared. And because a lot of patients are just like, as soon as like, I got a headache, oh my gosh, clearly this isn't good for me. And it's like, well, no, maybe the headache was for other variables. Maybe it was good. Maybe it was normal. So it's definitely about having someone on your team who is troubleshooting those symptoms or troubleshooting those fears, essentially. So
awesome. And as you're watching us, don't freak out, because we're going to, of course, give you a way for Nick and Nicole to be that person for you, regardless of where you are in the world. So hang tight, because we're going to go through all of it and all the answers.
Yeah. So obviously you guys are probably taken away at this point. Like, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And it's okay. There is a way for you to know. And it's really, we need to get away from this idea that it's bad luck, it's bad genes, it's getting old, because it's none of the above. That strips us of our power, that mindset. And there is tons of things available for you to get clarity on why you feel the way you do, number one. And number two is not live in this place of, I'm just doomed to feel a certain way based off of my family history or based off of the fact that I'm getting older. And the other thing is, don't be fooled that everything should look like a textbook. Because when you feel like crap and you know it, you know, I am tired, I don't feel like myself, my appetite is weird, my stomach feels funny, I feel like my hormones are different, and you go to the doctor and they run that blood work and they say, but you're fine, so you're probably depressed. You know better to know that there's something off, and it's just a matter of getting better testing, because it's not in your head, you're not crazy, it's not just a fluke. There's just something that needs to be looked at beyond the conventional testing and beyond the textbook.
Yes, 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 yes.
So that kind of brings me to the old versus the new. I totally stole this from you, by the way. This slide,
I recognize.
not this exact slide, but this idea. But I love the presentation at our office, and I started just thinking about it. Is when I put this here, like, this isn't even talking conventional medicine. Like, conventional medicine is the old. But I think that there is a lot of clarity to be made when it comes to even functional medicine versus integrative medicine. So I used to do functional medicine. And really what that is that I got away from the conventional and I started to do better testing. So I started to do the stool samples and the blood analysis and the urine analysis and the hormone testing. But one of my mentors, who I respect so much, he looked at me and he said, don't call yourself integrative if all you do is diet and supplements. Nice. And that's really the toolbox that I was working out of. I was doing better testing, but I was diet, supplements, and then it was like, okay, a different diet, different supplements. And people were hitting plateaus. Some people were doing well, some people hitting plateaus, and some people didn't do well at all. And I knew that I needed to learn, grow, expand, and I knew that there was a lot that I was missing. I wasn't going to look at the patient and be like, you're not compliant. Like, no, there was other things that could be implemented that I just clearly didn't know about in that time period of my career. So Dr. Nick and I kept learning, growing, evolving, and it's pretty awesome because he went and did different courses and different trainings than I did, and we brought it together. Like, I don't want to do what he does, but I couldn't practice without what he does. Yeah. And he says the same about me. So it's amazing to bring the knowledge base and the passions for different things together. But it's also about, okay, give you all this great information based off of your testing, but then every single patient, every single one, they look at me and they go, well, now what? How are you going to fix me? And I'm just like, don't worry, we're getting there. Because it's also, you know, what types of therapies do you need? Is it really just diet and supplements? I knew that I had to get away from that being my only tools when I was getting the patients that are like, been there, done that. I already did the elimination diet. I already did the detox supplements. I already did that. Like, what else do you have to offer? And that is when we started to bring in emotional therapies, bioenergetic therapies, detox therapies, lymphatic therapies, physical therapy, chiropractic. Like, we have so many things going on and nobody gets the same protocol. Every single person is extremely different. It was the same for you guys. You guys were like, didn't even see each other. You'd all be doing different things in the office.
Yep. 4 of us there and no 2 people in the same room.
Yeah. So integrative medicine is really the new model. It's the way of the future. It's what we should be looking for. It's what we should be asking for. And people always want to know, like, how does this work? How do I get access to this? Like, does my insurance cover it? You know, trust me, I do think that insurance is going in a better direction than it has. But when you are behind the scenes, when it comes to insurance companies, like, it's insane. It is such a game. Like, even how strategic I have to be with my diagnosis codes to get people's blood work covered. Like, it's a game. And unfortunately, they are not, as what we classify in medicine as preventative is things like pap smears or mammograms. But if you think about it, if you get a mammogram and it tells you have cancer, you have cancer. You didn't prevent anything. So it's really, they're not looking at a lot of these truly preventative therapies as medically necessary. So a lot of what we do is falling in that out-of-network world, but it's because we also choose to ask better questions, to spend more time with you. I can't go through your 26 pages of your health history in 15 minutes. Like, I want to know, because I know that you're tired of going everywhere and nobody giving you answers and nobody giving you solutions.
Amen.
So we've opted to do it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us, Dr. Nicole, about, okay, so healthcare is about answers and solutions. Do it. Tell us.
Yes. So when it comes, like, we've obviously referenced the testing. You're probably like, what is this testing? What do they do there? So we've evolved our process, even since we've seen you, Stacy.
Yep.
But we decided to not give you just a doctor, but to give you a team. So at this point in time, when you come through our doors, you're getting time with me or Dr. Nick as the doctors. You're also getting a health coach who is talking a little bit more about lifestyle, dietary things. You're also getting a designated nutritionist. So you have not only your health coach and your nutritionist that are helping you to figure out what's best for you to get started, but they're also like your coaches throughout the duration of your program. So when questions come up or symptoms come up or obstacles come up, you have a team that's constantly there to support you. And then from a testing perspective, we're definitely doing very comprehensive blood work. The great thing about it is it goes through your insurance, because we'll do it through Quest or LabCorp or whatever labs that you're in network with. But then we're also doing a variety of different testing in-house. But Stacy and I, at this point, we're working from a distance together. So we're actually doing a refresher on her body, just kind of getting insight where she's at right now. And all she needed to do was send me a hair sample. And that's because you have DNA in your hair. So the technologies that we use can actually analyze down to that level. So we're looking at the DNA of your system. Like, do you have inflammation? Are there any pathologies? Are there infections? Is there autoimmune? Is there any of that stuff going on? In addition, as we're looking at other types of meridian stressors, so we're looking at, like, do you have stressors on the meridian system, which is more of a Chinese medicine aspect. We're looking at heavy metals, chemical toxicities, mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies. We're looking at all of it. But my favorite.
Yes. Go ahead. You say your favorite, and then I'm going to say my favorite.
Okay. My favorite is what we've been talking about with the supplements and the therapies, is that we do not guess, we test. So when you send us that hair sample, one of the tests that we're doing with it is we're challenging different supplements, herbs, remedies, and therapies against the DNA of the hair to figure out what is going to neutralize any of the DNA stressors. Yeah. So when you get your recommendations of, hey, this is the diet you should be on, these are the supplements you should take, hey, you need to get into an infrared sauna 45 minutes a week, whatever the case may be, that is not our opinion. That is not our educated guess. That is based off of what your body says is good.
And this is what I'm talking about. This is the testing where nobody's guessing. We have a result on paper that came from a metric, and these are the possible tests that or therapies or supplements, and we're using this autonomic response testing to ask your body and to figure out which is the one for you, what is the dosage, what is the treatment, and how that works. And it is a game changer. I am all about no more guessing. Absolutely not. It has to be based on fact. And that's why I love what they do at IWG, and also the BioRes and the BioScan are like two of my absolute favorite tests. I cannot say enough about the experience that Paul and I and Jake and Grace have had with the testing that we were able to get from the BioRes and the BioScan. I really think that the results from that opened up the whole world for solutions for us, and also the metals and the molds and all the other stuff that they do as well. Like, the testing is unbelievable, and the ability to solidify the solution through the testing is just something I would never, ever, ever accept living without ever again.
I love it. I'm the same. It's bad though, because I'm like, Nick, can you muscle test which type of wine we should get at dinner? Like, it's bad.
That's okay.
I'm like, muscle test everything.
That's right. Absolutely.
So one of the reasons why we actually do this onboarding process the way that we do it is for everything that I told you guys today. I was so exhausted with a patient coming in. We go through their history, and then I give them all these kits, which I know you have experienced. I give them the stool sample, and I give them the hormone test, and I give them the blood test, and I give them all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, now go spend a couple $1,000s on all these tests, and I have to hope that I know what's going on with you after you just spent all that money, because, you know, I don't want to tell you to spend more money if I can't figure it out.
Yep.
And I was just very exhausted with that process. And I was also very tired of looking at the body from one view, always looking at it from a chemistry standpoint. I wanted to really make it more well-versed. So I was looking at all of these different aspects and then piecing it together to really figure out what is the foundational issue for the patient. So that's been a really exciting evolution. And I know that my job is done when my patient looks me in the face and says, oh my gosh, that makes sense. When do I get?
Yes.
Like
100%.
I'm not selling anything. Like, this is not about that. This is just like, they're like, holy crap. Like, this is so clear. And I'm just so excited to finally feel trustworthy and confident in this process.
Yes. Amen. It's so important.
So, you know, I know that some of you are on here just for probably knowledge, and some of you are suffering. And really, at the end of the day, depending on what your goals are and what you can achieve by finally getting answers and finally knowing what is going on with you and finally having a plan that's personalized to you, that is priceless to me. And of course, it has a price, guys. But the way that we do things is we actually do it at 1997 if you work directly with Nick or I. If you're someone you're like, you know, I just have a little bit of stomach ache sometimes, you know, my thyroid maybe could use a little improvement, then we have a lower tier program that is more for primary care. That's actually ran by our nutritionist and health coach under our supervision. So that is actually $997. So when you do your strategy call with our team, it's just important for you guys to, we hear you out, we hear your story, we hear what you're looking for, and then we let you know which way is best to go. But we actually, there is no link here because we do not necessarily have people just buy online. And that's because we want to get on a call with you. We want to make sure that we are the absolute best fit for you as you are a good fit for us. Amen. Because this is, you know, this is an amazing world, but it's not for everyone. We totally get that. That's totally okay. But we definitely want to make sure that we can meet your expectations and that we could give you all the things that you're looking for in healthcare. So we definitely will give you that strategy call link. It's all over our website as well. But that is the first step in this process, to just let us get to know you and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is so priceless, right? So you get to have the strategy call, and then you can decide if you want to start going through it and do the onboarding, which is a huge relief in and of itself, because that's the part where I said, like, Paul and I spent a good amount of time filling out the entire health history. And you know what? That was a really good idea for me and Paul too. I'll just be honest. It was actually during that time that Paul and I were documenting everything for Nicole's health history that I looked at him and I said, like, oh my gosh, I didn't really see it, but this goes back to my C-section with Jake. This goes back to that time I had to see a neurologist because I was losing my vision when I had headaches. This goes back to that time I passed out because I didn't have sugar and they did a blood test and said, your sugars are fine. Like, this goes back, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize all the different times this thing has evolved and rested and got stronger and evolved. Like, I saw it when I put it together for Nick and Nicole, and it's a priceless experience. And we'll answer all of your questions. And yes, you can do the whole thing remotely because that is the direction that the world needs. And that's what Nick and Nicole are doing. And we'll go through questions, but I just want to encourage everybody to do this because we really can. We can keep going, dealing with symptoms. We can keep going, wondering if our kids are okay. We can, and we do, and we end up honestly spending all of that and more on distractions or possible symptom fixes or other things that we do, when really, if we just stop and say, you know what, let's just find out for real and solve it this time, we can really just focus our energies on that and our resources on that.
Mm-hmm.
And be done. And I know it seems hard to believe that all of this can be done remotely and long distance, but I'm living proof of that. And it's really, really important. And some people will fly to IWG. They have people fly from all over the world and be like, I'm just going to stay there for a week and get all of like the baseline stuff done with them so that I'm starting my protocols. We've been through all of it. I've done all the testing. I know it. And then I'm going to fly home and we'll keep doing all the protocols and the retesting remote. And you can totally do that. I've had friends who've done that. And it's totally worth it, but you also don't have to, because thank God, the testing that they use keeps getting more and more and more and more advanced, so that now they can do remote, all the testing and treatments remote through the hair sample and all the different protocols that we do. And it's really, really amazing.
Yeah. And even when it comes like the treatment side, there's certain things we can do. And then there's like obviously neurological work or physical work has to be done in person. So once we have all that data, we're able to decipher like, hey, does it make sense for you to come for that immersion week and do therapies, or does it make sense for us to just continue working from a distance? So it definitely varies person to person. So we always are able to troubleshoot that as we go.
Awesome.
So I want to see if there's questions. I'm like navigating this. I'm sure that there is.
Okay, I can field you the questions.
Okay.
So guys, go ahead and start posting your questions. So the first question, I'm just gonna, from Kristen, and I'm so excited for you to answer this. I know my answer, but I want you to answer it too, is, are we missing the chance to do muscle testing and other things by doing this remote? And I know that a lot of people will find this hard to believe, but you go ahead and answer, Dr. Nicole, and then I'll share my experience too.
This is always like, first of all, when it comes to all of, some of the DNA-based testing, that's done through like technology. So that's leveraging a very, very specific type of technology. But when it comes to the autonomic response testing, so that traditionally is actually a muscle test. So what happened is we weren't always working with patients remote. And what happened was we started getting results that were skewed when people were coming in and they were physically doing the muscle testing on them. And it was skewed because if somebody was getting stuck in traffic or they just got off the phone and had like a terrible call with their spouse, a blowout fight, things like that, like all of that type of stuff contributes to changing your autonomic nervous system. So and it also changes your energetic system. So we were trying to figure out a way, like, how can we remove some of this bias? And we started to leverage different technologies in conjunction with muscle testing through a surrogate. So AKA, we muscle test through a person that is being magnified with the DNA of the hair. I know this sounds so wacky. I swear to you, it works. Trust me, like, I don't want to be a weird doctor. I just like want to do what works. Like, I always say that to people. I'm like, they're trying to be like, can you explain this to me? I'm like, listen, I wish I could just do this really, really simply, but like, I don't opt to be weird. It's just, we do what works. So even if you are local to us and you're coming in, we actually still do the testing from a distance anyway to remove that bias or whatever energy you're carrying around from your day, your boss, whatever else. And we've found that the results are better. And like, the results are proven because when you start the person on their protocol, their supplements, their diet, their therapies, and they're getting better in 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they're the person that's been sick for 25 years, like, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
I want to see the proven results, and that's what we see every day.
I will also just say that you can talk to a lot of practitioners who use muscle testing, And they will tell you, if it's a trusted space, they will tell you, like, I don't really need to touch you, to muscle test you, because I know how to check in just with myself.
Yeah.
Because that's part of kinesiology and the study
That's not
of
me,
what
that's Nick.
they do. Nick can do that, and I know other people who can do that. And actually, I've developed myself also to the point of being able to, and it's almost like an EGS, being able to muscle test without touching somebody. So the practitioner, it is absolutely possible, and it is real. Next question we have, Miriam wants to know, just to set expectations, like, what is there a post onboarding testing, like time and expense, that she can sort of try to understand? Is that even something you can have a ballpark on, or is that something that really comes up in your strategy session?
Yeah, so after we do we do all of those tests, and then we do what's called a report of findings. So we go over everything, and you have a full hour with me, and then you also have an additional half an hour with your nutritionist, just to like fine tune your diet stuff. We actually do those on separate days too, so your brain is not like melting out of your ears. But after that, when we work with people from a distance, I always ask them, I'm like, is your intentions to come here for treatment, or are we going to work from a distance? So I will modify like their plan accordingly. No matter what we do together, we need to do a mini reevaluation at the 6-week mark. And that 6-week mark is a reevaluation that's done through some of the same technologies and tests. I think that we charge like $300 for that 6-week checkup. And then I go through and modify like your supplements, your diet, and give you like updates essentially on what you're doing, what needs to change, what you're going to continue, etc.
Yeah. Awesome. Excellent. Dawn's asking, does remote treatment work even in another country?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And people from all over the world have worked with Nick and Nicole. Does the hair sample work if your hair is dyed? It sure does. I pay for my beautiful natural blonde hair now. And
well, usually have you like not a lot, but you pull maybe 1 or 2 strands out, so we get a little bit of the hair follicle, and then you're fine.
If it sounds hippie and woo-woo to you, then it might not be a fit for you. But honestly, everything that we do in relationship development is considered woo, because we are leaving all of the demand, relationship, conformity, power player. This is what I need the human race to do in order to feed my power and feed my pockets. We're leaving all of that bullshit behind so we can take a stand for families. And that is a huge thing that has resulted in what the medical industry is today. It is a huge machine. It's like going gambling at a casino. The house always wins. Well, pharma always wins right now, and we're the ones who are losing. And so that's why we're taking a stand here today. Kristen says, done muscle testing as a surrogate through my daughter, and I totally get it. I love it. So Suzanne's asking, the $19.97 is the onboarding. It is a one-time cost. And then whatever the protocols of the therapy, supplements, and all the other things, they'll go through all of that with you, because everybody's going to have different things, right? Like I might be using an infrared sauna. I might need this. I might need 3 supplements. You might need 5. And it's really then at that point that they'll show you what those things are and what the price is. And then you can work on that plan for yourself or your family with the practitioners, and they'll tell you. Kathy, do you also look at our recent MRIs, x-rays, lab work done that got us to this point of still having no path for a holistic treatment?
Yep. Yeah, I constantly are looking at MRIs. Like I mentioned in one of the stories that I was telling about a patient, but like I will refer out if I need a chest x-ray or if I need any type of imaging, but I will look at previous imaging and previous lab results as well. So often we have people send blood work and variety of tests that they've already had done.
Yeah, Paul and I, we both did that. In fact, for all 3 out of the 4 of us, we did that as well. Nick and Nicole are physically located at Integrative Wellness Group in Belmar, New Jersey, on the beautiful Jersey Shore in Belmar and Asbury Park area. Stacy wants to know, do your suggestions match up with the medical medium and other whole food plant-based approaches?
Yeah, it's so funny because people kept talking about the medical medium, and I was like, what is this about? I need to read this book. I will tell you is that what he says about Epstein-Barr and what he says about strep is on point. Yeah. I see it every day. It's extremely on point. But, you know, going back to like the recommendations is that if everybody did celery juice, is it going to kill them? No, it'll be good. But is your celery juice going to eliminate your autoimmune condition or solve all of your health problems? I don't know. So that's the thing is, I think his information about why people feel the way they do, the epidemic of chronic fatigue and all of that, like he's pretty on point. Yeah. But overall, like treatment stuff, like we've talked about today, is I just think it needs to get more specific person to person.
No question. And I will just say I'm a huge medical medium believer. I've read all the books. I drink celery juice 3 years now. I do the diet changes as well. A huge whole food plant-based diet approach. 70% of my diet is fruits and vegetables, and we do all organic here, and our food is made fresh every single day here. And I did that for so many years, and it was not enough. I did the supplements that are listed in the medical medium book. I was guessing it was not enough. I did the diets that were listed in that book. Also guessing that was not enough. It doesn't matter how many oranges I eat. And then, by the way, find out I actually have a problem with oranges right now. Who knew? Well, their testing actually did show that I should stay away from oranges of all things. And then 2 weeks later, it was gone. So like, it's just, it's so important and it's great. And just like with anything else, we're not done. We need help with the implementation, and we need real facts, not guessing. Yes, it's true. The mercury, the EBV, the strep, it's all true and it's all real. And we need actual solutions by person, because your body is an environment and an organism on its own, and we need facts and testing.
100%. I always laugh. I'm like, did the medical medium just have a bioresonance and that's how he wrote his book?
I love the bioresonance, and since the medical medium is not sitting on my driveway waiting to give me my personal reading, I'll take that biores every fucking day of the week. Renee says, my 8-year-old has autoimmune encephalitis, pandas. Is this something that we can discuss, or is it too complicated? I will just say, Nicole can answer, but there's nothing too complicated for Nicole and Nick. But Nicole, would you answer that?
Yeah, one of our first patients that came for a immersion week was a pandas case. And she was pretty severe. I still, to this day, I'm blown away by her case. She came for a week, and I did a follow-up with them, and I was like, so how is everything going? And the mom was just like, her symptoms are completely gone. Like, she's a normal kid. And I'm kind of like, are you sure? Like, it's, I don't know if it's possible in 1 week that she could be completely better. And she's like, she is. And I reached out to them again 2 months later, and she's like, she's still 100% better. And it's crazy. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm still a little bit like blown away by it. But no, we've worked with many cases, and they all do really, really well, because we do a lot of neurological work, not just detox work. Like we hit it from a couple of different angles.
And that is one of the biggest differences between integrative wellness and health and functional and conventional. Like, this is like such a different level. Jennifer wants to know if you do video calls, and I know that she does because I have done them. Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions at all for Dr. Nicole while we're blessed to have her here? Awesome. This was great, by the way. And can you all just say thank you in the chat? I'll read them off. Anne says, if you don't have a major health issue, would you recommend working with an integrative medicine doctor? And how would you find a reliable one?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just to prevent you from ever having a major health issue. So the integrative doctors will definitely be best. Finding a reliable one is a little bit of more of a loaded question. But I would definitely say you want to just make sure that you're asking better questions, asking like, what is their toolbox essentially? You know, what types of testing are they doing? And, you know, are they really just focused on diet and supplements, or are they doing more than that? I think that's a really important thing to take away.
And I would absolutely still recommend working with Nick and Nicole, because you can work with them remotely. Why risk it with investing your time and energy and your body with a practitioner that might not really be helping you, or even with the best of intentions? I say the same thing about therapists and counselors with families. I'm like, I'm sure they have the best of intentions. And what's their divorce rate? Are you really going to put your time and energy and your family's results in that person's hands? They don't know what they're doing. They may have been doing what they don't know they're doing for years, but they're not getting results. And it's your family. So I would say the same thing with your health. And if you feel pretty good, I would watch the beginning of this. Someone's asking, is it worth it if you feel pretty good? I would say watch the beginning of this webinar again with Nicole saying how she felt pretty good and didn't think she was sick. Do the testing, because what we've told ourselves when we feel pretty good is also us not wanting to, we've been trained not to be weak, not to be sick, not to admit we have a problem, and to suck it up and not complain.
Don't fix it till it's broke.
What's that?
Don't fix it till it's broke.
Right. And our definition of broke is fucked up. Right. So let's just you know, it's, if you feel pulled to do it, then you should. Everybody's saying, thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate your time. This was awesome. Thank you. Yeah. How can they reach out to IWG? I'll put the number right here, or the link. What do you want to give me, Nicole?
So the link, I think somebody actually put the link in already. That's to our website, but on the top right corner of our website, there's the free consult button. And the free consult literally just takes you directly to book that strategy call with our team. And then reference, when you call, if you reference this webinar, I'll make sure that they give a $200 discount for anybody who attended.
Sweet. I love it. So go to integrativewellnessgroup.com, and the top right corner, you can click for your, what does it say over there that they're looking for?
Free consult.
Free consult. And then mention that you were here at the Relationship U Hands of Vlad. And you'll get $200 off, which is super generous, by the way. Thank you so much, Nicole. I know you guys work so hard and put so much time into it. Really, really, really appreciate that. Oh, thanks for that link, Steph. I appreciate that too. And everybody is posting in the chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to say thank you, not just for our family, Nicole, what you and Nick and your whole team at Integrative Wellness has done is really empowered us for life, because I never, ever, ever worry that we will run into something that we can't fix, because I know that you're here for us. And I just love you so deeply. And thank you for being here for all of our students here in Relationship U today.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. I really love doing it, if you can't tell. And for those of you that have been here and you want more, when you go to our website as well, we have something called a webinar archive. And literally that is all 48 of my webinars. So take advantage now, because Stacy told me I should charge for it, and I haven't done that.
I can't even believe what I'm hearing, because I know I told you to take those webinars down, put them in a course, and sell it online.
I'm working on it. But right now they are available, so you guys can take advantage of it, because it's on a variety of different topics. Send it to your friends, because unfortunately in this day and age, everybody is suffering to some capacity.
Amen.
We have children that are sick, and it's not getting better, and people need to know what's out there.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Nicole. Mwah. Love you. I will see you soon. Thank you so much, everybody who was here in Relationship U today. Thank you for being here as a champion for your family. I thank you on behalf of your children, your spouses, your mothers, your fathers, your sisters, your brothers, your friends, and everyone who you will be able to shed light on one day when they describe something that you just heard here, and you're going to be like, okay, whoa, hold up. You need to go to integrativewellnessgroup.com and go watch this class from Nick and Nicole, and it will explain so much, because there really is an answer, and you don't have to suffer. So God bless every single one of you and all of your families. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.